Numera is worth all the hype, guys. I know it's been a tumultuous weekend with this banner and all the Numera craziness, but sincerely, she is that good a hero that it makes sense that people are kind of losing their minds. I have played with her a lot now. I've done a lot of damage testing, and I have a crazy guide prepared for you. I want to give you the lowdown very quickly right now because there's going to be a lot in here, and I am going to be fast. This video will have chapters so you can jump around as you see fit because I'm doing such extensive testing. Also, because I'm doing such extensive testing, I'm not even going to fast forward the runs with music like I normally do. I'm just going to cut and then cut to when the run is finishing. I think it's cleaner that way. I don't want the video to be 1 hour long. And as you can see here in the sheet I prepared, we are doing 6 very in-depth tests. So we're testing Numera in a lot of different situations and other heroes in a lot of different situations so we can really compare and contrast. You can see here we're going to start without using Laurel. We're going to test all these guys at A0 and A3. We will test with Vixera. We'll add in Laurel, then we'll again test with Vixera. Then we'll do the same Laurel tests, an actual Nightmare 4 cycling comp, the meta kind of thing a lot of people like to do, just like we did in Run 3. But in this one, we'll take out Vixera. So how does Numera do as a pure marksman unit? You know, no esotericist involved, no poison meta stuff involved. And then finally, we will bring in Nastia, and we'll do a final test where we take out all of our Nightmare units. We lose the Torador, we lose the Sun Wukong and the Kigiri, and we just run a Piercer comp and an esotericist comp, and we try Nastia at A0 and Nastia at A3. You can see it's going to be a lot, so I want to just skip through the battles as quickly as possible and go straight to my conclusions, straight to the results. To kick this video off, I'm going to break down Numera. The good thing about Numera is her kit looks very complicated. It's actually far simpler than it looks. There are a lot of characters in Watch of Realms, like this guy right here, Hex, where the kit looks very complicated, and the kit is very complicated. I would guess less than 1% of players that use Hex could tell you exactly what he does. It's really a novel getting through it, and it's kind of complex stuff. Numera looks complicated. It's not. So I'm going to break her down for you, break down the awakenings, then I'm going to go over exactly how I have geared every single one of the units we're using in our testing. And let me tell you, I have tried for so long to get the gear as even as possible for every single unit. It was very painstaking. It took me over an hour and a half of prep just tinkering with each piece of gear to make each set as comparable as possible. So if you appreciate that, and in general you appreciate my content and this guide, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel and like this video. So after we break down her kit, after we break down the awakenings, after we go over the gearing, we will hop right into the testing, and it will be boom, 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 boom. We have 6 tests to do, so let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
All right, folks, welcome to the Testidious Test Server, as we tend to be when we're testing out new heroes. I've got Numera here. Quick thing to mention, all the skills I'm about to discuss, the numbers I'm giving you guys are Numera at max skill ups. But for all you Numera owners out there, if you've been lucky enough to pull her, if you haven't realized already, she's the kind of unit you're going to want to skill up right away because she's broken good. But just keep in mind, all these numbers are her at max skill ups. Let's start with the talent here. Let's actually go right here to this effect, this key mechanism in her kit called Grim Thorn Spike. So what is the Grim Thorn Spike? This is just a thing she generates, kind of like Yovara's swords that appear behind her. And you can see every single basic attack is going to generate one, and it floats behind her. She can have up to 4 at a time. Once she has reached the maximum capacity behind her of 4, every single additional basic attack will have a 50-50 chance to summon another one. That will not go behind her, though. That will immediately be launched into the enemy, and that will deal 400% damage, which is a lot. She's got a really powerful kit, a lot of base attack, and it will inflict 1 stack of poison. Poison is really key to her kit. It's a big source of damage. And if you pair her with an Esotericist Lord, the acute poisoning debuff that those guys put on, ramp that poison up in a really crazy way. And finally, she has an ability called Toxic Surge, which is a poison explosion or poison activation. She's the only unit in the entire game right now that has it, and that just makes her perfect to pair with any other poisoners as well. So she has the 50-50 coin flip chance once she has the 4 spikes behind her that every additional basic attack will launch an additional spike. It does the poison, it does the 400% damage, and it restores 40 rage. Her ult with skill ups is 900 cost, which is pretty freaking cheap, and she's an esotericist, so you can cut a lot off of that, and she's giving herself consistent big chunks of rage. Basically every other basic attack 40 rage, so that comes out to every basic on average is giving 20 rage. Before we go into all of her skills now, and they're amazing skills, let's talk about her base stats. I really just want to focus on her base attack. You can see here she's at 4,821. That is pretty freaking high for a magic damage dealing fighter. It's not like broken, but it is the higher end of all the magic DPS. She's right up there with the top ones. So this is really impressive stuff. Aside from that, everything else is really standard for a fighter. Nothing really to mention. She's got the 2.6 second base attack interval. She has the 14 rage regen auto. The 8 rage regen off of basic is low. You know, typically you'd expect 10, maybe even 12. But remember, she's getting 40 on average every other basic. So she actually is going to feel like she builds rage a lot faster because she does. Let's go to the kit now. The basic is really simple. She's a magic DPS, 120% damage to one enemy, one time. Let's go straight to the ultimate now. You heard me say the max number of spikes behind her was 4. This number increases to 6, but only momentarily with the ultimate. She'll immediately gain 2, and then rapidly she launches all her spikes. So almost always when you use this, like basically always, she will have her 4 spikes. She'll immediately get 2 more, so she has 6, and she launches all of those randomly at enemy targets in range. But keep in mind, if there's only one target in range, and especially if it's just a boss, those are all going to hit that unit. They hit really hard, and you get all those crazy Grimthorn spike effects. So what am I talking about? First, each one of those will deal 520% damage and inflict a stack of poison. So basically, it's immediately 6 stacks of poison. Realistically, for single target content, for boss content, where she's going to absolutely excel, you're already going to have a full 10 stacks. This just refreshes the stacks, which is nice. But that damage, 520% per spike, you're probably going to have 6 spikes. We can all do math here, right? That comes out to 3,120. 3,120% damage. I mean, that is really good. We all agree that's really good? It's really good. There are additional effects, though. Let's go to the second passive. Each Grimthorn spike, and this can come from the ones after you stacked up the 4 behind her, the 50-50 on the basic attacks from the talent, or when you launch them here at the ultimate, each one is going to do 2 really important effects. I want to start with the second one here. This is damage reduction. She now ties several other units in the game for the strongest damage reduction in the game, minus 30% all incoming damage. It's really powerful to have this, though, on such a powerful DPS. The only other good example of such a good DPS, though he is worse, but still an excellent DPS, is Lord Phineas. You need his exclusive artifact for that, but he deals really good damage in the right comps, and he's got the damage reduction. She now deals even better damage, and she also has, it's going to be effectively 100% uptime on the damage reduction. Really good. Now, the Grimthorn roots, this should make her a pretty evergreen hero. So she's entering the game as arguably the top single target DPS for a lot of content. Depends on the comp, but even in her like worst comps, she's still going to dominate. She's really strong. But this here, even if they start power creeping as they're power creeping with her right now, and we've seen power creep in the past with Wukong and Kagiri for these single target DPSs, obviously we'll get stronger stuff in the future, but Grimthorn roots over here should be somewhat power creep proof, at least for a long time, because this is continuous true damage scaling off of her attack that is stackable up to 6 times. You refresh this every time you go to place another stack. Once it's at max stacks, it lasts 6 seconds. So the uptime on this in boss fights is essentially 100%. So it's 100% uptime of 6 stacks of 30% true damage based off of her attack per second. We are talking 180% true damage based off of her attack per second, every second, basically for an entire boss fight. It isn't much because it's based off her attack, but it is constant and it ignores all defense and magic resistance. So the actual end result is a really significant DPS contribution. Finally, let's go to the first passive here, Poisonwood Branch. There's 2 parts here. The first part is cool. The second part is extremely cool. The first part is her Grimthorn spikes inflict stun. That's any spike she does, so the 50-50 here or the big launch. There's a little RNG because it is a 50-50, but if she's pretty fast, she's a very reliable stun unit for Semra for the first phase with the Death Saw arm. For some people, you'll probably have to do it, but for certain scores and with how much DPS she and others can put out now, she could probably be your main and only stunner. At the very least, pair her with a Wukong or a Torador or a Hex or something, and you are cooking. The second part here, not that the stuns aren't really cool, but this is just strictly unique to her. She does a full poison activation for every single stack of poison on a target. Every unit in this game that can apply poison builds their own pile of poison stacks. That's how I like to think of it. And it goes up to 10. So every time she explodes one of those, she's going to do 50% damage per stack. So if that piles at a full 10 stacks, that's 500% damage. It's scaling off of her, not who placed it. And she can do that for every other poisoner. So you could have 4 different piles of 10 stacks. It adds up and it adds up. She is really well paired with Vorn because he's the only unit that can build 2 piles of stacks at the same time. Everyone else can just do their 1 pile up to 10. Vorn can do 2 up to 10, so 20 total. But the key thing, Numera is very good by herself outside of a poison comp, but this is what makes her like the key superstar to the poison comp. Just beautiful. Let's go to the Awakenings now. We'll go pretty fast. She's got a lot of good ones here. The A1, the first part, during her ultimate, all damage is increased by 25%. So that big blast, that 3,120% damage, that all gets a 25% boost. So that's going to be applied to all her other damage multipliers. Additionally, the damage dealt by Grimthorn Spike and Toxic Surge guarantee crits. This is basically irrelevant for like the later part of mid-game and on through the end game. But early on, if you get her early, a lot of her key DPS will not require crit rate if you get her A1. So you'll outgrow this, but at the beginning, she's probably like one of the easiest broken DPS to build for early and early mid-game players. Let's go to the A2 now, plus 300 attack. That takes her base attack over 5,100. Ooh la la, we love it. And then her best awakening, the A3, is pretty broken. When she's attacking enemies, all of her damage, naturally, she will ignore. This can also just be considered their magic defense, so it's a penetrating effect, ignoring 20% of everything she has to deal with. That is amazing. Each time Nature's Wrath is cast, this effect increases by an additional 5%, up to 25%. So once you've cast her ultimate 5 times, so any long battle, she's just permanently ignoring 50% of all of the magic defense, of all of the magic resistance. It is completely ridiculous. It's like she's personally has a 50% magic res reduction, and then that stacks with other effects. So like if you got Lyra putting out a 30% magic res reduction, with this, she only has to deal with 20% of the target's magic resistance. I hope you guys see how crazy that is. We've got the A4 now, another 8% pen, so now it's 58% once you've got the 5 ults off, and 33% before you've done any ults. Finally, the A5, she is able to heal herself, so this is not essential for a lot of stuff because we tend to use healers, but for certain PvE maps, you know, maybe some applications in Guild Wars, it'd be nice to have a little extra healing. The Grimthorn Roots effect, that true damage over time that stacks up to 6 times based off of her attack, she will be able to heal herself by 20% of the damage that is inflicting. So she's a monster. Let me show you. I'm going to break down everyone's gear very quickly, and then we're heading into battle. We have 6 tests to do. I promise you will all be blown away. Let's go. Okay, now guys, let's review the gearing and then head straight into battle. So I have applied a very strict DPS gearing convention to try to make this as even a testing ground as possible. So what is that convention? Every single unit you see that is a DPS in this video, and I'll click through them very quickly, but all of them are going to have Warlord on the left side. Every single unit will have a weapon with attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage as the DPS, and a breastplate with attack bonus, crit rate, and crit damage, and they will never have flat attack on the breastplate. I want to keep that very even. On the right side, whether they're a Soulbound Arcana hero or an Infernal Roar hero, they will always have 1 piece with a crit damage main stat, 2 pieces with an attack bonus main stat, and then of those 3 total pieces, 1 of them will have the 4th stat be flat attack, 1 of them will have the 4th stat be rage regen. So everyone gets 1 extra bonus of flat attack and 1 extra bonus of rage regen. The final thing you'll see, they all have an attack speed somewhere in the mid 200s, and they all have additional crit damage right around plus 190 to plus 195%. I applied that restriction in a very tight way. So with that addition, they're all at crit damage of 340 to 345. They are all crit capped, and they all have just about 20 to 25% rage regen. Don't believe me? Let me show you. So here's an Infernal Roar example. You can see this is our attack bonus piece, and this is our piece with flat attack. This is a crit damage piece, and this is our piece without flat attack or rage regen. This is our attack bonus piece, and this is our piece with rage regen. If we look here, attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage, no flat attack. And then here, attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage. This is the same for absolutely everyone. And the end result, somewhere in the 200s to mid 200s additional attack speed. Then we have somewhere about 20 to 25% rage regen, and then crit damage in that 340 to 345, the 190 to 195 additional. I'll click through really quickly now so you can just stop and look at the stats if you don't believe me. Here's Kagiri. He's at 345.5. It's hard to get these super tight, but you can see it's very, very consistent. If we click through everyone here, I really spent far too much time trying to make this all perfect. Everyone crit capped, everyone somewhere in like 220 to 250 attack speed, everyone in somewhere to 190 to 195 additional crit damage, with rage regen getting added one time. So here's a low roll of 18%, but typically they're all right around 20%. We got 18, we got 22, 18 and a half, 17, what do we got here? 21. It's all close enough is what I describe it as. Finally, for artifacts, if anyone has an exclusive artifact, they are in a promo 5 plus 25 max exclusive artifact. So in this testing, it will be the Sutra Copris for Hex. Silas has got his here. We've got Kagiri. We have got Sung Wukong. We have got Araka. And that'll do it. Everyone else is in their best in slot, and it's also promo 5 plus 25 max, and that would be Numera with the Shattered Hilt. We have Vixera with the Tear of Twilight. We have Nastia in a Tear of Twilight. We have Torador over here in an Astral Obelisk. You get the picture. The only 3 units we're using that are not DPS, it's another simple convention. I went for the best build possible without giving any of them Invigoration or Wings of Grace. So here you can see a very high attack Dolores, but I broke up the set, Invig, Wings of Grace, Invig, so she gets no set bonus. This is to make sure it's not unfair when some units we are testing are getting an Invig buff or Wings of Grace buff, and others are not. So here's our Dolores. She comes out to just over 14,000 base attack. She is in a maxed out Golden Scarab. We got Hollow over here, also in a maxed out Scarab. Good healer build, but you can see I broke up the Invig with this random, offset Infernal Roar piece. And then finally, no Invig, full broken set, just a tank build on Laurel. There we go, guys. The gearing has been broken down. Let's head into battle. All right, test number 1. We are using Araka as a Lord. We are using Torador as a Lord, and we are bringing Vixera for acute poisoning. We are not bringing Laurel. Key thing here, guys. This will be a non-cycling test. So you can think of this as not exactly a Nightmare 4 run. We're just using the dragon as a dummy that we're punching away at to test our damage. Subsequent runs, once we introduce cycling and Laurel, those will be what you recognize as a proper run. We'll still put up good DPS, but let's kick things off with our pure damage test of everyone at A0. That's this test right here. Then we'll head into run number 2. It will be the exact same test. No cycling, no Laurel, but we will bring all our DPS up to A3, and then we'll start introducing Laurel and doing proper cycling. An important thing to know, once we start doing proper cycling, Numera for these 2 tests, run 3 and run 4, will have an advantage over Kagiri and Sung Wukong because she'll be in cycling range of Laurel and the others will not. But I think that's a realistic test for DPS because for a lot of players, unless they've got very high awakenings or very, very meta appropriate gear, she will be the strongest of the bunch, and I want to highlight her in this video. We're then going to ditch them, so it will no longer be such an issue, but it's worth mentioning when we bring like Falcia in, she won't be in cycling range. Numera will be. So let's go in. I will set up this first run with you guys, but from here on out, I'll just explain the run like we just did for each run, and then hop to the results at the end as the battle is ending. One final thing before we head into battle, guys. For these first 2 tests, I'm not going to use Dolores, so keep that in mind when you see the end results over here. Let me already move myself over, but when you see the results, the numbers are going to be much lower for these first 2 tests because we are not bringing inspiration. Now, why am I choosing to do that? It's fairly simple. Because I want to run this as a pure damage test where the dragon is just our punching bag, and I just want to set a baseline of damage with just comparing these heroes to one another. If I run Dolores, she would not be consistently applying inspiration to all the relevant DPS units at the moment they all need it. It wouldn't line up with all of their ults and stuff like that. So I just think it doesn't make sense to bring it because one hero getting inspiration and this hero not getting it consistently throughout the battle would throw the whole thing off. So the numbers for these first 2 runs, the damage testing non-Laurel runs, they'll be lower, but it's just about comparing the heroes to one another. All right, let's set this up, and then, let's get to the results already. You'll see I will use Dolores in the later runs because we're doing Laurel cycling, and I will treat those as if I'm properly running Nightmare 4. But here, I just want to set it on auto and whack away at the dragon. So no Invig, no Wings of Grace. We can just deploy everyone right now. So we'll go Numera, Kagiri, Wukong. We can go Silas. We can go Hex. We can go Vixera, Hollow, and then we will let that be. I can't fit the other melee units into Hollow range. These guys don't really matter, though we will test them on the later tests. Let's go. All right, final stretch here, guys. Final damage numbers coming in. So you can see, including Shield, Hex and Sung Wukong are leading the pack. We got Numera right behind, and then a pretty big drop to Silas and Kagiri. Obviously, Kagiri will jump up in a big way once he is A3. And everyone will change a good bit once the cycling is appropriate. But here you go to give you a sense. We've got Hex in first, then Wukong, then Numera. This is our no inspiration test, right, guys? Kagiri is going to be in the back. Also Vixera there, too. But yeah, Kagiri without his Awakening 3, he's just a completely different DPS unit, not nearly as good. And then Vixera, because she has the lowest base attack, she probably really needs the inspiration more than anyone. But Numera doing really good, especially considering she doesn't have her own exclusive artifact, and you're going to see how this continues to scale as we start cycling things appropriately. I also want to mention, pretty good. We almost got 50k with all A0s, though very good gear and very good units, without using inspiration. That's pretty wild. It'll be interesting to see the jump in blood as we do the same thing, again without Laurel, again without inspiration, but using A3 units, because A3s are just ridiculous. Give me 1 second to put this into our log. All right, I input all of the data. Here you have it, guys. So that's our nice little baseline reference. Let's go to A3 now. It'll take me just 1 moment as I port all the gear from these A0 versions of each hero to the A3 versions. So give me 1 moment to do that now. Here they are, guys, all A0. And here we are, all A3. So the relevant DPS, the 5 DPS, they are all A3 now. We will do the same when we introduce a hero like Falcia. I will say, aside from when we A3 Nastia later on, but until then, we will keep our Legendary Lords at A0. And yeah, of course, in case I didn't make it clear, the epics are always going to be A5, because any epic you're using for late and endgame content, you will have A5. Full stop. You'll have endless epic soul stones eventually. But there you go, guys. A3, 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 and A3. Let's hop right back in and do the same test. I'll see you at the results. All right, folks, home stretch here. Let's check the overall statistics right behind my head, and you can see it's a pretty tight race between Wukong, Numera, and Kagiri. Hex has a little bit of lead. Wukong just put out a big blast of damage, though. But yeah, the A3 makes a huge difference, right? We didn't even get to 50k blood before. We ran the exact same test, 68.2. The biggest one is Kagiri. He's just like a new hero with this. It's worth mentioning here, Numera does come in fourth, though a lot of her damage, as you saw from the overall statistics, was going into the shield. So that's just a bit of RNG and a bit of how the kit works. But all in all, these are our top 4 performers. Then it's a drop off to Silas. And once again, Vixera is just nothing changed for her. She didn't get any new awakenings, and she's going to suffer for sure without inspiration. But I think we set a pretty strong baseline here, showing like even without Nastia, she is in the running right there, depending on the shield damage or not damage. She was right bunched up with A3 Kagiri and A3 Sung Wukong. A3 Hex, specifically for Guild Boss 1's kind of going to be in a league of his own for a test like this, because he's just going to be ulting forever. That's just how it ends up working out. But a really nice result. Let me put that in the sheet. All right, we have loaded in our data, and you can see pretty nice upgrades for everyone that got the Awakening boost. And yeah, I think we've set the baseline here. We've got a good impression. It is time to add in Laurel for some cycling, and of course Dolores for some inspiration. The only thing that has to happen now is we're going to take out Silas, just because we need to take out someone to put in Laurel. And then because we're putting in Laurel, we will start cycling in Torador and Araka. They're not going to do very well, even though they're in just as good of gear as everyone else, but they won't get to be on the field the whole time like Vixera will. You'll see the jump in Vixera's damage is going to be something pretty special. But yeah, let's take out Silas and let's put in Laurel. All right, there she is. Just for this test, since we're now introducing something new for people unfamiliar with the Laurel cycling, we're also adding in Dolores. I'll show you just the setup here up until like the first shield. Then we'll check back in with the results at the end. If you're familiar with how this works, it's very standard Nightmare 4 kind of stuff, Guild Boss 1 kind of stuff. You can already skip to the results. But let's hop in. Quick reminder, guys, just like Dolores and Hollow, Laurel is not in any Invigoration or Wings of Grace. We don't have Silas now, so we just have to slightly change our placements. But we will start with our fighters first. We'll do Numera, Kagiri, We'll do Sung Wukong. Now we are going to place Vixera here, because if we placed her back here where Silas was, she wouldn't be able to hit the boss. We place Hex back here. Now Laurel here, Dolores here, so she has everyone in range. And finally, Hollow. The early ults we will use since it takes a while to get Dolores going, but for everyone else we will wait. So we can trigger, trigger, and trigger. So actually everyone's good to go. That's kind of fair anyway. I'll just wait for Dolores and Hollow, and then we're going to do the pickup. If anyone comes back around, we will use them as well. Yeah, we don't want to pick up Laurel until we've already gotten that Dolores ult off. And actually, for consistency, what I'm actually going to do, and I'll do this every time, we'll wait till all these guys get their ults up, just to make that first one pretty even. The DPS, as you guys will see, is going to be like the ultimate non-issue for us. All right, so let's go down the line here. Hex was slightly hurt by that, but that's life, baby. And now we're going to put down our units. They will be outside of hollow range, but just so we can get a little DPS numbers for them. It's worth mentioning when we do this, we'll lose a Wukong clone, but he can also just clone right there. So he'll get a third one back up very quickly. See you guys at the end of the fight. All right, very home stretch here. Just a couple seconds left. I'll throw in an auto. So you can see pretty big number there. Definitely makes a nice difference when you have the cycling in. Pretty big stuff. You can see we got about 9 million more damage, a little less than 9 million more damage, 8.7 it looks like, from Numera instead of Wukong. Then comes Kagiri. Hex is still the king, and I think Hex the king he will remain just because of just how well his ult plays for a battle like this, where it's not really about bursty moments, it's just about going the whole time. That's kind of why these three guys you'll see are going to be a bit more stars in like Semra than Hex, though Hex is also still awesome there. And actually all of these guys are completely broken in Abyss. But yeah, here's Vixera. Pretty nice little glow up. What improved her damage about 40, about 60% or something like that. She was in like about 30. She went up about 20, 60, 65%. You can see these guys were only down as they got cycled in and out, but it's pretty embarrassing. Of course, nothing from Laurel and the other epic girls. But yeah, I think this is a pretty clear picture. Numera, of course, has the benefit of being our cycle unit. Wukong cycles so fast, it's not like he'd be getting so many more ults, but definitely having Kagiri there would have helped. I think Kagiri probably would have put up a number like Numera if he was in the cycle range. Actually, so would have Wukong. They probably all would have been somewhere in this 160 to 170, give or take some. I don't imagine I'm going to run a test trying them each in one spot, but I do think these are just three fairly comparable units when they're at A3. And I think it really says something because Numera is obviously infinitely more accessible, and this isn't even her in her full form because she's not with Nastia. She did get the benefit of Vixera, though. So before I input this, I want to remind you the next test will be exactly what we did without Vixera. So let's see how hard Vixera was leaning on the acute poisoning debuff from Vixera. All right, the data is in. Let's run essentially the same thing, except we're going to take out Vixera now and bring Silas back in. Remember, the acute poisoning debuff, I should have highlighted this earlier, so let me just hop in and show it to you all now. If you haven't seen my Vixera guide, by the way, definitely check that out. But the acute poisoning that she does, she needs A1 to get it, but getting the epic to A1 is pretty easy. It's going to increase all poison and toxic surge damage by 40%. So that's another thing I wanted to mention. All the poisons from Numera are getting the boost. The toxic surge as well, though she only has 2 stacks of poisoning. So you can see she's doing this well, like basically mostly outside of a poison comp. Now, essentially, we're taking her the whole way out because we're removing Vixera. I mean, Numera's doing this well. But you could see if she had more stuff to explode with that toxic surge, it'd be a pretty mighty thing. But yeah, we've been leaning on that, so let's stop. Let's take that out. Let's put in Silas, and let's do the test again. I'm going to hop right to the end, guys. I'll see you there. All right, coming in at the home stretch again, guys. We have a new highest blood, and this number will keep climbing as we keep improving the testing, the circumstance I keep setting up. But you can see actually Numera and Sung Wukong still neck and neck. I suspect a lot of Numera's damage here that's putting her ahead of Wukong is going into the shield. So that probably will change on the final result. But you can see even without any acute poisoning, any semblance of a poison comp outside of who she is, we're getting a pretty awesome result. Crazy thing there, you saw the Hex, this Hex number went through the roof. So pretty shocking stuff from Hex. That just comes from Silas being A3 and giving that boost, which I should have mentioned in the initial tests as well. Silas's A3 is increasing the damage of him and another marksman. Hex is the only other marksman, so he's getting the damage boost. But we can see big number for Hex. Numera just edges out Wukong. Kagiri, some unfortunate Kagiri RNG there where his ults were lining up, I'll be honest. Silas putting up a pretty good number. Much more respectable there. Silas, people were wondering why in my initial tests on my Vixera video, which you guys should definitely go watch, people were wondering why Silas's number was so low, because Silas needs ult cycling in Guild Boss 1 to be viable. Here he got it, and here he was good. Another thing to point out, Sung Wukong just about as good as Numera, even though she's outside the poison comp, but she's getting the ult cycling, he isn't. So I'd suspect he'd be somewhere 160 to 170, maybe 180 with some cycling. Kagiri would be much higher with the cycling too, and frankly with better RNG. There were a couple times where he triggered his sweeping strike off of his ultimate, not his Ember Strike, which obviously hurts him. And you can see similar unimpressive stuff from Tordor and Raka. Let me throw this data in the sheet. All right, folks, here you have it. Data is in the sheet. Big takeaways. Hex sees a big jump when he gets the boost from Silas's A3. Very powerful thing for him. Silas, much, much better than when he doesn't have the cycling. It's kind of night and day. And yeah, Vixera right there with Wukong. She's losing out on the poison comp. He's losing out on the ult cycling. But I'd say anytime you've got a unit that is comparable outside of their perfect situation to A3 Wukong, I think you've got something pretty freaking special on your hands. And then I want to point out, obviously we didn't use Vixera the last run, but like Vixera is just infinitely more deployable than these guys. Obviously, she wasn't cycled and these guys are, but they still spent a nice chunk of time on the field, and the numbers are just nothing. Vixera at least is really respectable, and I'm not going to run it here, but you can see in my Vixera guide, if you have Nastia and you just need other poisoners, you can run Vixera as a non-lord under Nastia, and her damage would shoot up closer to like 100 million. It's definitely something. However, we got 2 more runs. Speaking of introducing Nastia, However, we have 2 more runs to do, and speaking of introducing Nastia, let's do that right now. So up until now, I've been kind of showing off what I think like the normal use for a lot of players for Numera would be. I chose Araka over Yovar because she's the more accessible of the legendary lords. A lot of people aren't lucky enough to have Yovar, and then I think a lot of people wanted Nastia, but a lot of people didn't get her. And I wanted to show that Numera is still incredibly strong outside of a poison comp, outside of being under Nastia. However, let's show her with Nastia now. So what we are going to do now simply is put in Nastia, and we're going to just run an Esotericist comp, and we will run a Piercer comp as we have been doing. So out goes Tordor, Wukong, and Kagiri. Give me 1 moment to set that up. We're going to be pretty quick at the end here, guys. I'm going to set this battle up now. The main change is the Nightmare units are out, the Esotericist units are in, and then the final thing will be the exact same comp, except I will bring Nastia to A3. I'll show you her A3, and you'll see why it's so crazy. On top of a good A1 and a good A2, she's now giving 70% acute poisoning boost as opposed to 40. Let me set up this comp. All right, here is the comp. If you want to know more about how Nastia works, and you're watching this the day this guide comes out, tomorrow I'm having my Nastia guide come out. She's crazy. You'll get a little taste right now. However, if you're watching in the future, the guide's already out, so you can click directly from this to that. But yeah, we're starting her off at A0, then we'll bring her to A3 just to show you the A1. This is really cool stuff for her. The A2 plus 300 attack for her, but she's giving faction team members penetration. That is going to help. That's going to help our Esotericist in a big way. But then the key thing here, if there's only one target, which there will be, it's a boss. Once we bring her to A3, we'll get the 70% acute poisoning instead of 40. But for now, she's A0. I will bring you in with me just for the start of this battle, and that's because I want to discuss the deployment of our platform DPS. So we can only fit with this comp 2 into Dolores range and Laurel cycling range, and we are choosing to use Silas and Hex in that range. I want to get a really good comparison of those two against Numera. I think everyone understands Nastia is really crazy, both as a debuffer support, helping her faction, and also DPS on her own. The other thing to mention is we're running Nastia as a Lord. As a Lord, she lowers the skill cost of Esotericist by 25%. That includes herself, so her skill cost is close to just 300. So she'll be able to spam out of that corner right there, so she doesn't need Laurel as much as Silas. Silas's numbers would plummet without that. So let's do our same deployment strategy. Instead of Kagiri. Oh, and by the way, let me tell you, I just directly moved Sung Wukong's gear to Nastia and Kagiri's gear to Falsia. But we'll put Falsia there in the Kagiri spot. Now we can repeat Silas in his spot. We can do Hex here. We'll put Nastia in the corner, so in Dolores range, of course, but out of Laurel range. She doesn't need as much. Finally, we get Hollow down, and then you'll see I am still going to bring Vixera as a cycle unit so you can get a sense for damage, and now we're cycling Vixera and Araka, and I want to show how Vixera is much better. So let's end the battle. I'll see you at the end. All right, home stretch here. We're just about to tickle 100,000 blood. It was a pretty good run. There were a couple suboptimal moments, but you can see Numera and Hex pretty neck and neck there. Falsia coming in third. Falsia can ult cycle like crazy because of her incredible attack speed, and then the reduction in ult costs that you get from an Esotericist Lord like Nastia. Let's go to the final stats here. You can see Nastia and Silas very comparable. I think pretty dang impressive. Nastia as a deployable Legendary Lord is hanging with Silas, and then the boost we get here, basically a rounding error between Hex and Numera. And a really crazy thing is Hex is in a maxed out Suture of Copris. Numera is just in a Shattered Hilt. I would be shocked if Numera doesn't eventually get her own exclusive artifact, and you would think that would take her to another level. We do have Falsia here in her maxed out exclusive, the Lucent Flame, as well as Silas in the maxed out exclusive, the Eye of Penitence. It would be cool to see if Nastia gets an exclusive as well. And yeah, there's the comparison I want to show you. Vixera was out one more time than Araka just because I deployed her first because she's better. But I mean, whether it's 3x or 4x damage, it's just night and day. As a cycle unit putting up 4.2, it's really, really good. So she's super, super viable for that. And yeah, I think a really, really strong result. The final thing that I really think is going to blow your mind is we will A3 Nastia. So let me throw this data into the sheet. There you have it, guys. Our second to last test loaded in, and you can see that jump from running on the Araka team with and without Vixera, and then running with Nastia for Numera. I mean, that is pretty crazy, right? You're talking about 50% more damage from 150 to 225, essentially. Hex right in almost exactly the same ballpark. Silas doing pretty well. Falsia, I'm expecting her damage not to just go up because we're A3ing Nastia, but because, I could have just hit her ults with Dolores slightly better. I missed 2 of them, though she did do like 20 ults because she's ulting like nonstop. Vixera, incredible numbers for a cycle unit. And then Nastia, basically right where Silas is. I'm very interested, I think you guys are too, to see how much her damage jumps up. And if that piques your interest, remember, at the time of filming this, my Nastia guide will go live tomorrow. If you're watching in the future, the guide's already out. So go check that out. Only thing left to do, let's head over here. Let's A3 Nastia, and let's kick it off. Okay, here we go. The 6th and final test. This has been an absolute marathon. So remember, if you like this video, if you like my stuff, subscribe to the channel. Mamma mia, what an afternoon. You can see this is my Azir Nastia. She no longer is geared. I directly ported all of her gear, which, reminder, was the Sung Wukong gear, straight to the A3 Nastia. So we have now unlocked some pretty cool stuff. Stuns on poison targets, poison immunity. That's good for like Semra. That's good for future stuff. We don't need it here. The A3, though, acute poisoning up to 70%, nearly doubling its effect from 40% to 70%, an additional 30%, a 75% boost. Do the math how you want to do it. Plus the A2, she gets more attack, and then she's giving penetration to all of the Esotericists. This should be a lot of fun. So let's put in our A3 Nastia. We are off to the races, baby. See you at the end. All right, home stretch here, guys, and you can see Hex still doing crazy stuff. I have a couple theories, but I'd love to know what you guys think, because I'm kind of shocked that his damage has gone up somehow, unless he had bad RNG with the cards the previous time. That is a fair theory. But yeah, Hex somehow his damage rose, but Numera's still killing it. Nastia passed Silas. Falsia did a lot better as well. 106k blood on a good run, but not a perfectly tuned optimal thing. Pretty dang nice. And you can see Hex coming in at 256.5 million. Nastia just a hair under 230. Actually, very similar to where she was before. And I honestly don't understand how that's possible. We'll talk about it in just a moment. Nastia and Silas basically tied, and then Numera here passing those two. And then Vixera, like less damage too. I actually am wondering if it's possible that her A3 is broken. So I'm glad I'm doing this before I'm filming my Nastia guide tomorrow. We'll certainly leave it in the video, but let me log that into the sheet very quickly. All right, guys, here you go. I popped in all of our final data. Before we break that down, I just want to show you, like I'm just exiting the run you just saw now, 106k blood. So obviously we improved, but it seemed like somehow Nastia was improving the team, but not necessarily improving the poisoners. If we hop in, you'll see this is my A3 Nastia, and to show you, like, should be a pretty big boost from poison. Acute poisoning went from 40% to 30% additional, right? All the way up to 70. I don't get it. She's giving extra penetration. Not that penetration so powerful in Guild Boss 1 for Nightmare 4, but it's something. And her attack went up, and everything else seemed to really stay the same. So I find this a bit curious. I'm going to show this to the devs. If you guys have theories, let me know in the comments. Part of me is wondering, did she give the 5% penetration not just to faction allies? Is it to everyone? I mean, I can't imagine that's the case. It says faction team members, but we saw a bump for everybody. She does put out magic resistance reduction, so basically a magic defense break to everyone, but she does that at A0 too. So I don't know if there were enough instances of RNG in that run to account for this change in the data. So let's just compare these two here. Numera almost completely identical. So we have way more damage from poison, which is a huge part of her kit, and she went up only 1/10 of a million in damage from 229.2 to 229.3. Somehow Hex picked up another 20 million, 19.7 million. Why? I don't know. Card RNG? Maybe, but I don't really know. We continue down. Falsia picked up, but I told you my timings were suboptimal. They were basically perfect the next time. Vixera, identical. Literally, she did 40.2 twice in a row. Araka, a very modest improvement. Nastia, an improvement. But I'm pretty confused. I would love to know any theories. All in all, though, the point I want to make is Hex is just a god if you have him A3+, and certainly if you have his exclusive. His exclusive is everything. But once you get that, Hex, I do believe, is definitively our Guild Boss 1 king. Outside of maybe we got some A5s on those Wukongs and Kagiri, but I think A5 is just a story for another day. And Numera, I mean, she's hanging right there with him in the perfect comp. And aside from that, she's second to him in basically everything. Aside from a couple of these nightmare things, but again, those were suboptimal for her, though she was the cycle unit. All in all, there's a lot of factors to control for. There were certainly great parts of this test, less than great parts of this test, but you can only do what you can do. That's why I tried to do such thorough testing. Again, if you guys appreciate it, do let me know. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. If you have any theories for whatever went on with those last two runs, I would really, really love to know. You can see this was my A3 run for everybody, but the Lords, and you guys saw it, Araka A0, Nastia A0. I really don't get it. Ooh, also I should mention, I'm not going to redo it, but I forgot to A3 Araka like I said I was going to do. So that should be a modest bump as well for Silas and Hex. All in all, things are fairly comparable, and this is very, 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 very curious, exceedingly curious. Maybe I'd have to do it like 10 times in a row to get a clear picture, but it shouldn't be something like a little misclick or an RNG could throw off. So I don't really get it. But you see, Numera is a total powerhouse. She's going to be good in all kinds of content. You'll see her featured in Abyss 1 tomorrow in the Nastia guide. And yeah, she's going to be good for basically anything you need big single target damage, because she's a freak in perfect comps and imperfect comps. She is a tremendous unit. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe, share it with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.